Hey, welcome in week 13, Shoot the Gap, Fantasy and Frames Podcast Network. My name is Nate Markham. Joining me, as always, my friend Mike Wohlert, Jorge Edwards, not with us this week yet, maybe, kinda, who knows, is Hollywood Titan, who is at a Christmas party. I believe that, or he's stalking Taylor Swift, ready to do the old Borat style, where he throws her Pamela Anderson style into a bag and kidnaps her and brings her back. If you're listening, Taylor Swift, that is not a threat. We promise that is all satire. But if you would let us keep playing your music, that would be greatly appreciated. I believe your volumes and well as sales is increasing exponentially every time we show these two beautiful faces on there. Mike Wohlert is my co-host today. Jorge is my trophy wife. So, Mike, I'll start with you. How are you, my friend?
Doing all right.
No offense about the not being the trophy wife thing. Sorry about that. Didn't think that could hurt your feelings like it must have. You look somber.
He's got no comeback for that. It's like, nope, you got me. You got me.
That's okay. Jorge?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, guys. Got a little bit of news. Just wanted to plug for all the Shoot the Gap listeners here. For those who did not see over the weekend, for the remaining portion of the season and hopefully into next year, we're partnering with Roto Underworld /Player Profiler on our Instagram pages, giving you IDP plays at defensive back, defensive lineman, and linebacker each and every Saturday. So we're excited for the partnership. They're of the belief that IDP needs to become more mainstream, just like we believe that, just like you all who are listening and watching believe that. So pay attention to our Instagram page over at Fantasy and Frames, and as well as at Roto Underworld /Player Profiler. Check out their content. We'll be putting out our joint matchups of the week at each position. So really excited about that. Really excited for the reception we've gotten from the IDP community. So tune in for that going forward.
Yeah, really nice. It's good to see just positive momentum, especially this late in the season too. It means that there is traction with everything. Speaking of traction, Von Miller might be in traction with torn meniscus. If anybody doesn't want that to happen, of course, raise your hand. I don't. I like Von Miller. But yes, Mike didn't raise his hand. Mike hates Von Miller.
No, I want everybody hurt.
He hates these cans.
I love injuries.
So, Mike, let me ask you a question. Is anybody a boom or, a step up in Buffalo with his injury, or is it same old routine rotation there?
Probably same rotation. I guess it would have been, you probably would have seen a little bit more of Boogie Basham, but I think everybody else is coming back. I think Gregory Rousseau is close to returning. I think AJ Epinesa is close to returning. So I almost wrote up Boogie Basham, and thankfully I read that everybody's returning because Basham has been pretty ineffective, to say the least. So I'm kind of glad I didn't have to write him up.
Yeah, they've gotten more production kind of from the interior as of late. Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver had been doing pretty well, but yeah, getting Epinesa's back will be pretty important, pretty big as far as I'm concerned. The Philly game, we saw CJ Gardner-Johnson go down with a lacerated kidney, I believe, is what the final diagnosis was.
How the hell does that happen?
I just
whenever I hear like lacerated lungs or kidneys or internal organs, like how the hell does that happen?
And I would love to give you an answer. Trophy wife, you got any ideas on lacerated kidneys?
No, I literally think back to the days of like Keenan Allen earlier in his career when he had a lacerated kidney, and it was always these like helmet shots to like the midsection. I feel like but how does that happen? I have no idea. Things move and things scrape, and next thing you know, you have a lacerated organ. But it was kind of scary watching CJ Gardner-Johnson goes down. I think he was tackling Christian Watson, and then he got up, and then came back down, got on a knee, and paused. And you're just like, what is he doing? Is he praying in the middle of the field? It's like, no, he just lacerated his kidney. He doesn't
Probably
know
was
what
praying.
to do. Well, probably a
Yeah.
little bit of that too. Yeah,
peeing blood and everything else.
Yeah, just not good news. And you obviously wish him a speedy recovery. He was, for fantasy purposes, he was lights out. So it's a big loss all around.
Yeah, that's pretty nasty. And so the question then remains, next man up. Mike, you've said this for weeks, the years, honestly, since we've all been doing this together, is that just because a person
can doesn't mean you should.
Like with the name of Reed Blankenship, who came in replacement of CJ Gardner-Johnson, looked really good from on TV in his first action, because adrenaline was probably at about, I don't know levels of adrenaline. Let's say they go 0 to 100. His was probably about a 220. He was pumped and he was running everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Was just because he's there. Should you play Reed Blankenship?
See, I liked him coming out of the draft.
Okay.
So for me, the one play that really stuck out, I watched it on the all 22, and dude's playing like 13 yards off the line of scrimmage. This ball snapped and he limits Aaron Jones to a yard.
Yes.
Playing 13 yards off the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
That's not luck.
That's question.
Like, that's speed, and that's just get into the friggin' ball. So I like him. I like Blankenship. He was I think he was mostly a box safety in college. So I hope he kind of plays Gardner Johnson's role and kind of plays closer. But I liked him, so I like him.
And if he does, that's the thing, is against Tennessee, if he plays up, despite the fact that Tennessee hasn't exactly been the most generous team to safeties, we know the opportunities there. If you're a box safety, you're always going to have a chance to meet old good Derrick Henry somewhere.
And
in
Henry's looked immortal.
Absolutely.
So it's not like he's his old stiff arm self and just bowling dudes over. He's looked pretty mortal this year.
Yeah. Unfortunately, J-Ron Curse for Cowboys is going to be missing an undetermined amount of time as of right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's probably a week-to-week type scenario. On the other hand, Eddie Jackson, Chicago Bears safety, is out for the season, last I saw, which is a huge loss, because that Bears team, don't get me wrong, they suck. We know that. No offense, Bears fans. But he and Jaquan Brisker both were playing extremely well. And this obviously gives DeAndre Houston Carter an opportunity to play. And we'll talk about him in a little bit, as far as if he's somebody worth rostering, as well as the replacement for Christian Harris in Houston, who left the injury with what we determined it was a shoulder injury, but nothing else more than that, nothing else known. Correct?
For who?
For Christian Harris.
Yeah. And now that I see, this is kind of, I guess this can tie into Money Mirage. It looks like Christian Harris is back at practice. So
really? Okay.
Yeah.
That's big.
But Kenny Moore was ruled out this week, and he's looking like he could be out multiple weeks too. Yes, so there's another one but he hasn't been good anyway, I don't think, this year.
No, he hasn't. Jorge, I mean, he was the consensus one cornerback that everybody was comfortable taking, except I'll tell you, I remember Gary Davenport even throwing water on that, saying, I don't care what you guys think. I'm not ever going to take a corner that high, no matter what. Mike, I know you were in agreement there too. I think we all probably should have, with the volatility, but situation was there, right? Slot corner, that he's plays enough in the near the line of scrimmage, heavily involved, blah, 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 blah. Jorge, are we disappointed?
It's more started off slowly. He had this season, that is, had a little bit of a resurgence tackle wise, and then just has been cratering ever since. And you're right. The past, I want to say 3 seasons, he's been the cornerback one in terms of production. He's been in the top 10 when you look at Fantasy Pros IDP scoring amongst all defensive backs. And so it was getting to the point where, some could make the argument, you know what, I'm okay with taking Kenny Moore as my DB1, but those days apparently are gone. So
Those days are gone. I wish I could sing better. It would be more melodic, but it's not. But what is melodic is knowing the sweet, sweet song of success when we get Money or Mirage right, where we take a look at some of the players available on the waiver wire or recently picked up, and we determine if they're going to be a money play or a Mirage play. And we have to go back 2 weeks, guys. We weren't here together last week. As we said, Jorge, on Fourth and Frames feels like a million years apart, but it was only 1 week. And in that time, we all kind of looked at AJ Epinesa as money. And then, of course, we don't see much of him. Amenahu, Jonathan Cooper, Dane Belton, none of them really turned into, well, Amenahu and Cooper, both mirages, as far as Hollywood thought. Caden Ellis, though, Jorge, Hollywood said Caden Ellis was a mirage. You had him as money. You put in parenthesis that week, though, you said this week. Are you retracting the this week statement and you're comfortable saying Caden Ellis is a money play going forward?
As long as Pete Werner's not playing, absolutely.
There you go. That's fair. So that was probably the play of the money or mirage. If you got that right and you're starting Caden Ellis, you're doing well. Mike and I, right before the show, were just joking around about some of the linebackers of who to start and this and that. And we said that you could have entered the league in your draft and could have went Blake Martinez, Shaq Leonard, obviously in different order, and someone like Divine Diablo, and you have no linebackers starting right now. And if you were quick to the waivers or paid attention to this show and or our waiver wire articles, and you had Jack Sanborn, Caden Ellis, and maybe one of the players we might talk about now, you'd be in pretty good shape, which is just, that's the chaos of IDP. So
if you would have told me in week 13 that I was going to have Caden Ellis in my top 12,
yep. How high up is he?
12.
He is 12. Wow. I'm telling you, I keep bouncing him. I keep moving him up. He keeps getting higher and higher. And then I'm looking at someone like, like TJ Edwards, who had a miserable week last week.
With him 7th.
And I'm like, I can't move him down because he's playing Tennessee. That just makes too much sense.
I got him 7th.
Let's get into some of these because I think there's some intriguing plays. Let's get crazy. Let's talk about a money or mirage play here. A name that I didn't think I would be saying in week 13. If you said, Nate, hey, money or mirage, Detroit Lions edge rusher, I'd say, Aiden Hutchinson. He's probably as a rookie, finally got his groove on. He's ready to roll. And you'd say, nope, it's some dude named John Kaminsky. And I would say, huh.
Dude from The Office?
Exactly. I would say I'll take Dwight Schrute for 200 and move on to the next. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, he made my waiver wire this week, thank God, because it's just getting to the point like I'm struggling to not repeat. I try not to repeat names so much, and I'm just struggling not to repeat names. And luckily, I went on to PFF just to kind of see who got pressures, and like, Vincey got like 9 pressures. Okay, let's take a look. And yeah, it's like, so I think he's been the most, at least over the last couple of weeks, he's been the most efficient pass rusher from a pressure rate standpoint, even for the most part for most of the season, even better than Hutchinson. So I thank God that convinced that he came about, because I'm like, I don't know who the hell to write up anymore. I mean, I've wrote up all these people every, I hate repeating myself, but if I have to repeat, I will. But yeah, Kaminsky is definitely in the conversation.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I wrote him up as well. Saw the same thing you saw, and dug a little bit deeper. And it's like he played more third downs. He played at every third or fourth down on the week, where Hutchinson played 92%. He probably missed 1 snap, 2 snaps, whatever. But he outplayed Hutchinson from a snap perspective as well as a total. I mean, he had a 21% pressure rate versus Hutchinson's like 5. He's been
he gave
been really good.
He gave a goose egg.
Yeah,
he gave a big goose egg. Hutchinson did.
Now, Jorge, that's the only thing you got to be careful. If you're thinking about picking up John Kaminsky, you have to be cautious that it's a boomer bust because he hasn't gotten more than 3 tackles in any game. You're hoping for the sack upside, and so just
15 pressures since week 10. I mean, what you just said, absolutely. The matchups here are going to be key for him going forward.
Exactly. So now, Jorge, let's talk about Frank Clark.
Ugh,
Why do you hate Frank Clark? I mean, I hate Frank Clark too, but I don't hate what Frank Clark's done since he's come back.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I hate Frank Clark. I don't really hate Frank Clark. I thought the acquisition of him from Seattle, great, played a good couple years, and then all of a sudden it just. I'm surprised they brought him back this offseason. I thought he was going to be like.
Believe they did.
But he just keeps hanging around. What's the DX quote from about Owen Hart? May he rest in peace. Back in the day, Mike, the nugget that just won't keep going down. It always keeps rising back up. That's Frank Clark.
I was thinking of the of Rounders where they're playing the one up, where they're playing the 1-on-1 at the end of the game, and he's just like hanging around. He's got alligator blood. He just won't go away. Can't get a read on him. That was a horror, and I understand that was a horrible. That was a horrible impression. Of
I closed my eyes and I thought that was John Malkovich, and I thought, how did we get him on here?
Horrible KGB impression.
How did we get him? You keep
but
giving those horrible impressions
in 3 straight games. So I mean, he's got a 19% pressure rate over the last 3 games.
Exactly. I mean, like I said, he goes as Chris Jones goes.
Unless I check the I was going to say, unless I check the Bengals' offensive line is not exactly what we like to call good. So,
no.
For this week.
Jonah Williams has been, like the last 2 weeks, where he's looked better if you look at the numbers, but it's been against Atlanta and Pittsburgh. And I know Pittsburgh's typically not the team that you pick on, but they haven't been productive in pass rush as of late.
Right.
I don't know. So are you going to hate Frank Clark, or are you going to give him the money tag against Cincy?
I'll give him the money tag against Cincy.
Yeah, that just means he's going to suck for us, and we're going to go back to hating him next week. All right.
Love it.
From one person who has been a severe disappointment but has come on strong as of late, to another one who's been a severe disappointment but has come on strong as of late. Leonard Floyd, Mike. Leonard Floyd. I say this here in Missouri, we're the show me state, so I want you to show me. And he's been doing that, but going forward, what do you think?
I just think he's a mirage. For the most part, he's been largely ineffective this season. So I don't know what he's going to do without Aaron Donald, because now they'll just all right, there's no presence up front anymore.
No, I think that was when discussing the option of Floyd. You mentioned that, and I thought that's just an excellent point, because that's the only person. I mean, imagine how much attention was paid to Aaron Donald in reality.
I mean, there's 3 guys on him every single time. And they're going to be able to spread out, get cozy, not have to worry about Aaron Donald in the backfield, just a couple taps here and there. They're going to call it a day. Jorge, do you agree or disagree with the Leonard Floyd take? Because I don't want to.
No, it's as Aaron Donald was the presence, Leonard Floyd got that opportunity. He got those one-on-one matchups. He for one game he had tackle upside. The rest he had sack upside. He has no upside anymore. You have all this attention free to go to him. He's just another guy for fantasy purposes, not in real life. I'm sure he's somebody special to someone, but he's not somebody that you're starting or putting on your bench or anything for fantasy.
Yeah. Mike, are you starting a one Jalen Reeves Maben with the aforementioned potential loss of Christian Harris?
Not with Harris back at practice.
Nope. I'm right there with you.
That's a no siree, Bob. That is a no thank you.
But even if Harris wasn't back at practice, would you still be?
Well, I think you'd have to. If Harris had suffered an injury that was going to keep him out this week, you would almost have to consider, because at this point, To get any type of a linebacker that's playing significant snaps, you'd have to consider him. I mean, I'm not playing him over, an elite guy or someone who's solidified. But I mean, if you're in a deeper league and you need an LB4, LB5, yeah, definitely he'd be in consideration. But if Harris is back and he plays, then Maben is just back to that base guy that's going to get 20 to 30% of the snaps.
Let me ask you guys this one then. So for the next one, assuming Christian Harris doesn't play, Jalen Smith or Christian Harris?
I'm playing Christian Harris just because of the matchup.
Yeah, and that's fair. What do we think? What do you think of Jalen Smith, though, as far as if you have him?
He delivers a great people's elbow.
Yes, he does.
I think, again, it depends on your need. I think with Jalen, and I think it depends on your linebacker needs. If you don't need a linebacker, I wouldn't worry about it. If you need a linebacker, yeah. I think he's played in more than 85% of the snaps in 2 straight games, but is that going to continue? Because he could fall back into his normal ways, because he's sometimes been a liability in the run, and he'll miss tackles and he'll just kind of be out of sorts. So if that happens, does he immediately get pulled? So if you need the linebacker help, yes. But if you're sitting comfortable, like this might go into one of our next ones, but if I'm to the point where, all right, I've got, say, I've got kind of a patchwork crew. I've got TJ Edwards and maybe Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, and my LB3 is, say, between Cody Barton and Jalen Smith. I'm probably going to take Cody Barton.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There it is.
So
feels good.
That's just me.
No, it's not just you, because that's all of us, because we all have been Cody Barton aholics this season. And I will tell you, I don't believe I dropped him in any league that I had him in.
I haven't either. Nope, I haven't either.
I don't know why, but it's probably, don't get me wrong. Hindsight says I wish I would have maybe for Sanborn in some, or
maybe.
I don't know. For what we've seen as of late, but either way,
ride or die. I
know it.
I've rode with them. I'm sticking with them, and I don't know if you got a time to put any production to have Whitney Houston singing, and and with the bodyguard, and just kind of that's just Cody Barton for me this year. I just can't drop him.
It's okay.
Craig Ruth, who does great GIFs on Twitter, if you're watching and listening, put that together. Whitney Houston's body, Mike Wollard's face, singing that song.
Please don't. No,
and please put Jorge as Kevin Costner with his face next to Whitney watching. Please.
Love it.
Starting next week, we will have the Whitney Houston, and I will always love you no matter what. That will replace a different segment. We're not getting, it's going to be an all musical. We're just going to have a musical each week, like Spirited. Have you seen that movie yet that just came out on Apple TV with Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds?
Oh, no. I do talk about it, but I've not yet. No.
Yeah, it's a good little movie. It's a musical, not my forte per se, but then again, Will Ferrell is my forte, like Ryan Reynolds. So I take that. I have a thing for those two funny guys. Mike, I think you had a thing for Chad Muma before the draft. Do you still have that to the point where you'll think he's a money play going forward, or is he simply a mirage?
Oh man, it's just so weird. To go from we want to see more Chad Muma to he's just gonna play the whole friggin' game.
I mean, what?
That was just weird. For me, he's kind of money, but what's hysterical? I mean, Devin Lloyd owners are just jumping off the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
I think in redraft you could probably drop him safely, but in Dynasty, I'm not dropping him.
Oh no,
right.
I'm
probably not trading him unless someone comes at you with a first round pick or a first round rookie pick. Then I'd do that for anybody. But man, Devin Lloyd owners are jumping off the bridge. In Dynasty, I probably wouldn't drop him. I might even trade for him.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to probably cost you much, especially if next week continues to where he's basically an afterthought again.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for redraft, I think you could probably I'd probably just still bench him. I don't think I'd outright drop him. But I'd certainly pick up Chad Muma. I mean, especially if you're a Devin Lloyd owner. I don't like handcuffing, but I think almost in this case, you almost kind of need to at this point of the season.
And that's so
I wrote up
challenging.
Muma as a rookie as a midseason pickup,
Oh.
but I was figuring it was it was probably going to be an injury thing.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking, Lloyd just is totally being replaced.
I don't know how we could. I mean, no, and if you even go through what do you think, Ray? Week 6, where Devin Lloyd was having productive weeks, and then he just fell off a cliff. And I listened to Devin Lloyd's interview post game, and he was saying that it was Peterson came up to him and said, "I want you to watch the game from the sideline. I want you to watch how it unfolds. You can pick up more watching from there than you can being asked to be on the field." Now, I don't know if that was the very nice way of benching a person, like very sugarcoating. Hey, you are our future. You will gain more by watching over there. Maybe, hell, go up to the box. Go sit next to the defensive coordinator if you really want him to gain the entire, perspective. Mm-hmm. But I worry that there could be I just don't know what they're going to do. I don't expect another 100% of the snaps to Chad Muma. But if they do,
I'm not either. But
I don't think. But you don't need that. That's the thing. Here's my one take on him that I worry about. Weeks 15, 16, and 17 are against Dallas, the Jets, and Houston. Against the linebacker position, they rank 29th, 30th, 31st, and 32nd. So it's not exactly ideal matchup against them, but still, you're getting playing time. You're getting a high prospect that, charted out high on the Mike Woolert scale, which is very, very big.
Very
speaking.
Well,
that's good though.
Going back to Devin Lloyd for a second, like he's kind of being the player that a lot of people thought he was going to be coming out of the draft. Like, this guy's a project.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he started turning it on in training camp. It's like, we're just going to thrust you into the starting role. It's like, what happened to this project nonsense? Well, now you're seeing the outcome. And just like you said with Mike, he was your number one prospect at linebacker overall heading into the season after the draft. And now we're starting to see the tides turn.
I think that's what we see with Jacksonville as a whole on the season is that I think Trayvon Walker, week 1, he looked very impressive. Came out, I think, was it week 1 that he had the interception? Doesn't matter. One of those weeks he did really good. And since then, it just hasn't been anything special. I mean, you look at this past week, what his pressure rate was? 0. What his win rate was? 0. He plays enough snaps. He's definitely talented enough, but I think that it's a great sign for Jacksonville going forward. All these names between Muma, between Devin Lloyd, with Foye, with Walker, with Josh Allen, their defense will be improved. I think it's hard not to think they're going to improve. I think that if there's been improvement, I don't know if that's the right way to say this. Mike, you answer this for me. Cody Barton, his play as of late has been an improvement to the point of it's been, solid. Like where I'm comfortable actually on recommending Cody Barton again. And yet it kind of terrifies me because here's the one thing I've noticed. It's, he's doing all this on even still 60% of the snaps. Money or Mirage, Cody Barton. I know can't go against him. Sing it.
I guess he's money. His grades have improved. He's gotten, he got some green in week 9, a little bit of red on run defense in week 10, but had an 81 grade in coverage. So that's always a good sign. Dipped below 50 in week 12, but I don't know. I'd still play him.
Who else are they going to put in there?
Nothing. Unless they're just going to go just run dime and single linebacker all the time.
Are you concerned
That's not
at
what
all?
Pete Carroll does.
No. They brought in Jonathan Abrams. They did. They brought him in recently. That's just humorous to me. I mean, how unfortunate for Abram is that he's just bouncing around from team to team to team now. And I don't see that being an impact. I've seen some talk that maybe it'll be
So he just had a cup of coffee in Green Bay, and then that was it, huh?
And that was it. They were like, "Thanks a lot. Here's your
cup of coffee. Here's some cheese curds.
Exactly.
Peace out.
Peace out. Head to Seattle. Go get yourself some Starbucks. He'll make his way to Kansas City and get some barbecue, and then he'll head up to Washington and get a shitty statue made out of him, out of wire hangers. Sorry, Jorge. Low blow on the Sean Taylor statue, but that was atrocious.
It was.
So you know what? I'm not gonna feign outrage at that, because if the way the family was talking, it seemed okay. So it's like, all right, as long as their families, I'm not gonna feign outrage over it.
Fair. You know what? And I will be the first to say this.
The daughter loved the fact that they emphasized the shoes that he was wearing, and she got tearful about how much it made her feel. And yes, you were absolutely right. The family feels like it's a good enough thing, then that's what matters. The family. But for everybody else,
correct.
That was a bullshit memorial. They could have done so much better. He deserved so much better than that.
I agree, though. I do agree. I wasn't about to go off, but I mean, yeah, I was like, wait, what? I did give it a little bit of a side eye, like, what?
So here's the thing I was confused is, so those were the shoes that he wore soccer cleats is essentially what they're saying, because that's what they made fun of, is that they were soccer cleats. They weren't even football cleats.
I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know the answers to that question. All I know is that the daughter found it to be moving, which okay, whatever. I mean, as long as they're happy, they're happy. But
he definitely deserved more than a Foot Locker display.
I agree.
Yeah, that's it. That's fair. That is a great way to compare it, unfortunately. But let's go to Chicago. We talked earlier about the loss of Eddie Jackson. Jaquan Brisker banged up as well. I think Brisker plays, Eddie Jackson's out. So next up was DeAndre Houston Carson, who had some really impressive plays. But does that mean just because you can, you do, Mike?
Well, if you look at the Chicago Bears, that safety role, you hate to make assumptions. It's like, for running back, if Jonathan Taylor gets hurt. Okay, well, we've got this guy. He's going to come up and produce the same. Yeah, there's a possibility, but you don't know that, or it's because we talked, the linebacker is very similar to the running back position. It's all about volume, and it's all about the opportunity and the snaps. And again, I think at this point of the season, it all depends on your needs. If you need a DB3 or a DB4 or some depth, I know this week there's a couple of teams on bye, and then next week I think is another big one where I think there's 6 teams on bye. Correct. So for planning ahead purposes, yes, I think Houston Carson could be a good spot starter, good bye week fill in over the next couple of weeks, because I know you got Chin on bye this week. I know you got Buda Baker on bye this week. You got Jalen Thompson on bye this week. So couple of big names are on bye this week also. So
well, here's another.
If anything, you're, and I don't mind it even to do it as a middle finger to the Eddie Jackson owner. So,
there you go.
It's all about strategy. So if you're doing it to kind of block your other owners of getting him, then yes, I have no problem with that as well.
So is that conditional that Brisker remains out? Because without having Brisker in, and anybody really to what Elijah Hicks was the strong safety, I could be wrong here. I mean, DeAndre Houston Carter had 23 box snaps and 23 free safety snaps. Does that assessment change if Brisker was to come back going forward in terms of your upside for DeAndre Houston Carson?
I think no, because even if he plays that Eddie Jackson role, Eddie Jackson was even productive playing a little bit deeper than normal. So I just think it's I think that maybe the nature of the position. Pre-snap, I mean, he'll sometimes move up. So there's also those types of deployments also.
Gotcha. And maybe I looked added incorrectly because I thought I had that Elijah Hicks played almost 95% of his snaps deep, and DeAndre and DHC had 35, almost 40% of his snaps in the box. So I figured that he would be in the Brisker role more so than Hicks, but I don't know that. That's again that kind of goes back to Jorge. Remember our conversation about the Giants? We didn't know if it was Dane Belton or Julian Love that was going to be where, and it just turned out that they went with whichever one produced early on because neither one was set to replace Xavier McKinney. Chicago might be in a very similar situation. So, all right, here's a question then for you guys. The next person up is Keanu Neal. Now, with the loss of Antoine Winfield Jr., Keanu Neal stepped in, played 80% of snaps, 52% of them were in the box. Would you rather have Keanu Neal, even just this week, or Houston Carson?
Well, if Cody Barton is Mike's ride or die, Keanu Neal is my ride or retire, because he's probably closer to that than he is to
dying. Holy
dying. Well, yeah, no, he is closer to retirement than dying. Yes, that makes sense. All right, that didn't really go the direction I had envisioned it in my brain.
You're not here for the brains. Remember, you're just the looks. You're
the looks.
You're
the trophy wife. Trophy wife. Yes,
just ramble on and just prance.
Still give me Keanu Neal.
Keanu Neal for you. How about you, Mike? What do you think of Keanu Neal?
I don't have a coin to flip, so
fair enough.
It's coin flip probably between those two guys. They're replacement level DBs. Neal has had the track record, a little bit more of a track record, but yeah, it's we're still looking at replacement level guys.
They are, and that's
Is that the term in baseball that they use? Above average replacement.
Wins above replacement.
Wins, yeah. So
WAR is what it is. WAR is a song. What is it good
What's
for?
It good for?
Yep.
I have many songs that go in my head at any given time. One that I can't get out of my head happens to go along with the next segment. The next segment is where we take a look at some players who might be underperforming by many standards, but we have to question, is it worth worrying, or do we simply...
Cause the players gonna play, and the haters gonna hate, baby. I'm just gonna shake it off. Heartbreakers gonna break, and the fakers gonna fake, baby. I'm just gonna shake it off.
Never gets old. Never, ever gets old.
Wait till we get Whitney Houston next week. It's going to be fantastic.
It will be. I'm telling you, we're going to catch our demographics really expanding into multiple different areas when this turns into a musical, and we all have to. I'll have this. Don't worry. I'll have our moves choreographed. I'll have all everything set up.
Wait till the expo next year. We'll be putting on a dance routine and everything.
You said that last year. I'm always out on that.
Come on.
Never. No.
It would have been good.
What might have been. It could have been. What could have been. What could have been.
Speaking of which, yeah.
What could have been, maybe, still can be, Uchenna and Nwosu, past 2 weeks, 2 pressures across 22 pass rush snaps, which is, mathematically speaking, 9% pressure rate. Not exactly solid compared to the 16% that he had over the previous few games. Mike, are you worried about Nwosu? And let's see how I did it both ways. I did Nwosu and then Nwosu. So I cover all my bases depending upon how he likes to be enunciated. Or, Mike, are you simply going to shake that off?
I don't know. I want to say shake it off. I mean, Rob Havenstein's a pretty decent tackle, but he's allowed 4 sacks. Usually in nickel packages for the Seahawks. I almost said Chargers. He's not in Chargers anymore.
I was looking for him earlier on the Chargers. I was like, he didn't even play last week. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, in the kind of their nickel sub packages, he'll line up over Havenstein, but if they do go maybe a little bit more base, he has a shot at lining up over Tyler Higbee, who has a below average pass block grade. So, he's a boom or bust guy.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. I liked what we had seen. I still think it's there. It's strictly going to be a matchup week in, week out type scenario for me. And I'm going to avoid the every week play because the bust factors there. The next person up is one of those that I have a hard time ever telling anybody not to start, simply because he is as elite can go. He was my number one linebacker on the in preseason. He's Roquan Smith. What are you doing, Mike?
Well, I got him as my LB22 this week. He's been, I think, in kind of depending on your scoring. I looked. He's the LB20. I think in week 11. Last week he was the LB39. Again, kind of depends on scoring. So, but again, he's Roquan Smith. I think Roquan Smith has actually been better for Patrick Queen, which I was not expecting I was not expecting Baltimore to shift their philosophy in linebacker deployment to basically run now 2 linebacker deployments. So Queen's been a 3-down guy since Roquan's been there. Denver's offense sucks. They're not getting very many snaps. They don't get many snaps. So, and they haven't been a good matchup for linebackers anyway. So I've got him in kind of the LB2 tier. But again, it's Roquan Smith. So he could easily go for 30 tackles and a sack this week.
Exactly. And so, Jorge, listen to this. This is a crazy little stat that if you took the name out of it, this is just a linebacker. We know the answer of who this is because obviously it would make sense if I was just talking about a random one. But Roquan has 8 tackles or less in 4 straight games. And I realize that people are like, oh, okay, well, 8 tackles. I mean, granted, that's 8's the high and like 3's the low. So it's not just 8, 8, 8, 8, but 8 tackles over the past 4 straight weeks. You have to go back to week 14 of 2019, going into weeks 1 through 3 of 2020, because he missed the rest of 2019, to have a 4-game stretch where he had 8 tackles or less. He back in 2020 in weeks 15, 16, and 17, he had 3 straight where he had like 8, 6, and 5. But no other segment of 3 weeks in a row or 4 weeks, even just as low as 3, has Roquan ever had 8 or less tackles consecutively like that. Is it a bad stretch? Maybe. But is it a sign of something maybe within the defense? I can't put my finger on it exclusively. And I thought that honestly, when he first was coming over, with the way that Baltimore was blitzing at that high level, I thought this is going to be really good for him. He's going to come in, continue what he was doing in Chicago, which was, I think, 2 straight games with the sack. And we haven't seen that yet, man. So, Jorge, are you worried at all about Roquan?
I'll be the person who says it. Is he a product of volume? As in Chicago, just being on the field a lot more, just because they've been really bad teams, and now he's on Baltimore, and he's just not getting the opportunity, getting the snaps that he was getting like he had in Chicago. I
don't think the offense I don't think the Baltimore offense has any impact on snaps for Baltimore's defense. I don't think there's any correlation there. So okay. I don't think a good offense necessarily means that it's going to be bad for IDPs and vice versa. So it's maybe it's maybe the offenses that they're playing, or maybe it's just his role in the defense. So I don't think it's the Baltimore offense that is limiting his production, if that's what you're trying to say.
Well, something's limiting his efficiency. So does that lean more to than just the defensive scheme that he's being inserted into then?
Could be.
And that might be something. And that's something to pay attention to and see. Let's get this straight, though. None of us are ever going to say that we're going to have a hard time in a 2-linebacker, 3-linebacker league ever not starting Roquan. It's just it's not going to be something, no matter how many poor weeks of production you get. Just by name standards, it's just one of those things that, shitty narrative, excuse for me to say I'm never going to not recommend him, but it's something to pay attention to.
Okay. So I'm glad you said that. Let's say you had to make this decision. It's a shallow league, especially next week and then come fantasy playoffs. Would you start Caden Ellis or Roquan Smith in the linebacker spot?
Oh, let's see.
Jack Sanborn or Roquan Smith in a linebacker spot.
Sanborn, I'm happier to do against Green Bay than I am Caden Ellis against Tampa. My 2 cents. But not by I Shadow League, one linebacker that you're starting. I'm gonna start Roquan still, even though I think I don't know, maybe I might start Sanborn there. Mike, what are you thinking?
I think you almost have to. I think you have. I would probably. I'd probably start Roquan because it's one of those things like, yeah, you have this running, like, say, it kind of again goes back to the running back position. You're like, all right, you have this guy you have Jonathan Taylor who's been meh over the last couple of weeks, but it's Jonathan Taylor, or you have what the hell is his name in the Jets? Tavarius Knight, who's going to be starting, and I'm like, I'm probably going to start Jonathan Taylor. So it's kind of, you know what I'm saying? So that's kind of how I look at it, because I'd rather
lose with him on your
with Roquan, and because the guy that I bench does, he wasn't my pick. It's like, all right, whatever. Then bench Roquan and have him do like his typical 12 tackle, 1 sack, and a forced fumble or something like that. And I'm like, oh, okay, I effed myself because it's kind of how. And is that playing? I don't know. Is that playing scared or playing not to? I don't know. But that's just that's how I look at things.
Yeah, and I get that. So with that, let's go into talk about some of the guys that we are happy to play. Maybe I don't think Roquan's going to make the fade list here necessarily, but we'll see who makes some of the play list. Jorge, why don't you start us off with your play at defensive line? Who would you go with?
So, and this is again preface that he's going to play well, even in limited fashion. He's been playing well lately. I'm talking about Marcus Davenport of the New Orleans Saints going against Donovan Smith of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Since week 10, Smith has allowed 5 total pressures and 2 sacks. In limited snap appearances since then, Davenport has had a 23.7% win rate in true passing sets, which is great when you're going against an immobile vertical quarterback like Tom Brady. I think Cameron Jordan came back last week. You have to account for that, the 1-on-1 matchups, the win rate, like I was just telling you. And Donovan Smith has just been playing not excellent. So I'm going to play him this week with confidence. Someone I'm fading is actually for the Sunday night game. I believe it's a Sunday night game. No, is it the Sunday night game that I'm thinking about? The Dallas-Indianapolis game. Of course, we're talking about DeMarcus Lawrence versus Braden Smith of the Colts. Smith hasn't allowed any pressures or sacks the past 3 weeks. I just feel like he's hitting his stride. The offensive line for the Colts has been playing better ever since, go figure, an offensive lineman has become the new head coach there. So I think you can look to other areas of the line, particularly the interior of the defensive line for Dallas. But I don't see DeMarcus Lawrence having much success this week, so I would fade him.
Gotcha. Speaking of fades, Mike, at linebacker, we know that it's, like I said, I alluded to, it's not going to be Roquan that you're fading, but who's someone that, or some people that you might say you're not going to play at linebacker?
I'm fading Atlanta linebackers not named Rashaan Evans. So that means I am not playing Michael Walker this week. Saw a big dip in his usage last week. It started the previous week, but I had figured, okay, they went to Troy Anderson on the field a little bit more, speedy Justin Fields. Maybe you want a speedier linebacker, but that doesn't appear to be the case. So there seems to be some sort of a rotation happening between Walker, Anderson. So I'm just fading. If you're not named Rashaan Evans, then I'm not playing you. The linebacker to play is Leighton Vander Esch, and I have him as my LB 11. Fantasy Pros has him. I don't know if everybody has their rankings uploaded, so I'm not sure. but the consensus on him is LB 51. So needless to say, I am a little bit higher on him than the rest of the field. Pretty consistent usage throughout the whole season, actually, and he's been healthy, which is a good sign and good for him in the defense. I'm not too worried about Anthony Barr's potential return. He wasn't getting, he's just, a strong side linebacker, usually in for certain packages. Kind of hoping Damone Clark continues to get some more time opposite Van Der Esch as opposed to Barr. But 12% tackle rate this season. He has I think he has double-digit tackle upside. I think he still has a relatively safer floor. And the Colts have allowed 10 inside linebackers to record 8 or more tackles against them this season. And they're allowing the most points to the linebacker position. So for him, I'm playing the matchups. I'm playing some of the numbers. So I am playing Leighton Van Der Esch.
Yeah, and you eliminate maybe J-Ron Curses, who last week saw 40% of the snaps in the box, that and 15% at the defensive line. I mean, those are just, to me, I see those as additional potential tackles that LVE could potentially take advantage of, which again, solid upside. And you hear that, just know Mike Woolard has LVE as an LB1 this week. So adjust your rankings accordingly. I'm talking to you, Fantasy Pro rankers, Nate included, as I move him up from, he's not 51 on my list. I promise you that. I'll tell you who I have on my playlist for defensive back is Whitney Houston and Taylor Swift. Just kidding. It is DeAndre Houston Carson. Mike, as you mentioned earlier, Bear safeties have been dominant all season. Packers more than generous to opposing safeties. I think that the news, without knowing what Jaquan Brisker is going to do, it gives me even that added little floor in that if in the situation he does play near the line of scrimmage, I love that matchup because I get the feeling that if it's Jordan Love, regardless of what we saw last week, they still want to lean on that running game more so than they do trusting Jordan Love to beat him through the air. As far as a fade, I hate to fade him as much as it's a tempered expectation, just simply because is Minkah Fitzpatrick. With Minkah returning recently, I'm not 100% certain that he's at full capacity yet. And Atlanta, I talked earlier in the fourth and frames, their run game, which could be stifled against Atlanta, because Atlanta's actually, I don't want to say stout or vice versa. Atlanta's run game is the only thing they have working in town. Their pass game, Mariota's averaging 155 yards per game. I just see this being, they're going to still try to run the ball, be unproductive with that. Even when they're losing, they're going to still run the ball. And Pittsburgh lets Minkah sit back, and I just think that tackle upside is going to be limited at best. And so I'll be interested to see where I have Minkah, but my guess is I'll have him outside my DB 12, 15 range when the time comes. So last piece of news, guys. Let's run through here. I'm getting hungry. It's time for a sack lunch. Jorge, I love your call. I want to hear who you packing up and not sharing with your fellow classmates.
Well, something tells me I won't be fighting people off with a stick for this one. But look, Dan Moore, offensive tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's basically the kind of guy who you'll look for who he's playing for IDP, and you pick the guy who's going to be on the opposite side of last week was Yannick Ngakoue, who just went off on Monday Night Football. Like I said, the past 3 weeks has allowed 9 total pressures and 3 sacks. So who does that mean he's going to line up against? Lorenzo Carter of the Atlanta Falcons. Just purely based on that matchup, I think you're definitely going to get a sack from Lorenzo this week.
Lorenzo Carter, not going to call the multiple sacks. Be as ballsy as Mike, I have been with some of mine. I believe I'm a little pissed off also. Let me get this off my chest. Mike, the last sack lunch that I had in week 11, I believe was Dexter Lawrence. No, it wasn't. Nope. I take that back. Screw that. You know what? I'm not even talk about it. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter who it was. because it might have been Chandler Jones. So I'm going to go ahead and pass on and say that was week 10 because Mike wasn't here with us. Mike, who is your sack lunch?
Well, he's not my official sack lunch, but it was no. This isn't my official sack lunch. But I saw a very interesting tweet come through before we got on. The Minnesota Vikings offensive line have allowed 100 pressures, which is insane because every one of their offensive linemen, with the exception of I can't remember who it was because he's bad. I can't remember.
Probably Ezra Cleveland.
No, it wasn't. Crud. And I know this is perfect. Okay, here we go. Every offensive lineman for Minnesota has graded within the top 10 of their position, with the exception of Ed Ingram. Ed Ingram has been the weak link. But Darisaw is second among tackles. Cleveland is 9th among guards. Bradbury is 10th among centers, and O'Neal is 10th among is 10th among tackles. So they've got really good offensive linemen. So I'm wondering if the pressures are because of Cousins, but still, when you've allowed 100 pressures in your offensive line, that's just insane to me. So, should be a very, very interesting matchup between Keenan Williams and the Minnesota offensive line. But there was a
time when both the two guards were first and third in the NFL in pressures allowed. I think that was 2 weeks ago. I don't know if they still are, but yeah, go ahead. Your official sack lunch.
My official sack lunch is Mr. Matthew Judon of the Patriots. Deion Dawkins has already been ruled out. Judon lines on the left side of the defense in both base and sub packages, so that'll put him on the right tackle, who happens to be Spencer Brown, who is grading as the 52nd tackle out of 53 among tackles who have played at least 50% of their offensive snaps. Brown's allowed 5 sacks, 5 QB hits, 20 quarterback hurries, and 350 pass block snaps. Judon is generating a 17% pressure rate. But what's interesting is he is below a 20% pass rush win rate. He's at about 17%. So even though he's not beating his blocks, he's just not stopping. He's still getting to the quarterback pretty consistent. So yeah, Matt Judon is my sack lunch call.
Nice. So mine was gonna be, I was gonna go low hanging fruit, take Myles Garrett, simply because I see my Houston matchup. But finally, Jorge, you'll get a kick out of this. Kenyon Green was benched last week. The ironic thing is they benched him in the middle of the game, and they said that it wasn't production based. They're like, it was actually part of the plan. And the Houston Texans beat writers and fans were livid. They go, hey, how is this not production based? Like, he's been the worst interior lineman in the NFL. And it's just now because, well, we're giving a breather. They're like, that's pathetic. They go, that's the worst play coaching I've ever heard of. It makes no sense. Please, please, please have a secondary option. And I can't believe that they haven't. But here's what I'm going to go with. Since we didn't get a chance to mention this particular player earlier in the Shake It Off section, I want to talk about, to me, the most incredible, overall numbers is how a person, mind you, let me pull this up exactly so that I don't discredit his insane last 2 weeks that he's done. Last week, he had 8 total pressures, and the week before he had 4 total. So he's had 12 total pressures in 2 weeks, and not a single tackle solo, and not a single sack, and that's Jerry Hughes. And I got to tell you, I think that Cleveland is, even with Deshaun Watson, sounds stupid reasoning, I think Deshaun Watson's going to run into a sack. He's going to be indecisive in the backfield, and he's going to hold on the ball a little too long, and he's going to look for a play to develop. And that's going to lead into Jerry Hughes getting 1 sack and finally getting that back into the sack column. That's maybe a stupid reason to think so, but you know what? I don't care. I haven't picked him yet, so I got to pick somebody different too.
That is the rule.
That is the rule. And another rule is when it's an hour long, we shut this bad boy down, put it into park, and we wait until next week to jump back into this saddle again and talk a little bit more IDP. So if you have any, I'd say, ranking information, questions, etc., obviously Mike Woolert over at 4for4 is more than happy to let you subscribe and give all of his pertinent information. Or if you want any of me and Jorge's ranks, articles, conversation for $20 a minute, Jorge will let you talk to him live stream, I think is what the going rate is now too. More to come on that. But most importantly, follow up. And again, to the fact that we get to team up with Roto Underworld and the guys at Player Profiler and push the IDP content to the rest of their vast listening and reading community is nothing short of awe-struck and awe-inspiring and humbling. So thank you. Please let us know if you have any questions, comments, etc. So for Jorge, Mike, and Nate, we will tell you, aim for the bushes.